Magic. So we have 4 teams representatives. Clemson from the South Carolina. That's correct. On closing off, and Northwest University from Crookston, Washington on opening opposition. Opening proposition is Aaron Baker and Megan El Sayed, who are not at all, they just met. It'll be fun. And then Portland State will represent closing government. So without any further interruption, and after the debate, we will have open floor. So if anybody wants to give a 1-minute floor speech, you're welcome to do so. And then after that, we are going up to Rogue Brewery, which I think lets in minors till 9. If you are a major, you can do whatever you want there. If you're a minor, you can just stand outside the business. It'll be great. They have really nice beer. It's a little bit pricey, but it's pretty tasty, so it'll be fun. All right, so I invite the Minister of Magic to take the floor. I'll vaguely give you signals about time. You can just POI when you like.
Ladies and gentlemen, the wizarding world as it exists today is a dead end, a cesspool of barely post-feudal politics and sheer ignorance about the way the natural world actually works. I have it on good authority that the head of the Ministry of Magic's Department of Muggle Studies barely even knows what a lawnmower is. We face a situation in which wizards are being dramatically and quickly exceeded by Muggle technology, and the possibility of the Muggle world finding out about the magical world grows larger and larger by the day. We must do something, and furthermore, we should do something. Those are going to be my 2 primary points in today's debate. As for a model, we have a few suggestions about how this should be taken care of. First of all, we can use our high-level contacts with governments, official governments like the government of regular Britain and the government of magical Britain, to communicate our intent to reveal the secret of magic to the Muggles. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to allow low-level communication by encouraging wizards to come out as wizards and showing examples of good, positive, loving wizard relationships to the world so that we can prove that magic is nothing to be feared. Finally, we're going to name J.K. Rowling as the ambassador of the wizarding world because we think she has a good understanding of the way the internal mechanics work, and she'll do a good job of representing us to the Muggle world. She'll bridge both worlds. The first point I want to make is that we don't really have a choice, that we have to choose a controlled rollout now over a possibly calamitous rollout of our explosion of our secret sometime in the future. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, and this will be a theme throughout my speech, is the scientific advancement of Muggles. There are cameras in every pocket, on every street corner, on satellites flying thousands of miles above the Earth. I know you may not know about the existence of those things, but they have the ability to represent the actions of anyone the same way that a wizarding picture does. A Muggle can essentially take a wizarding picture of a wizard doing something magical, turning into a cat, apparating to somewhere in the world, casting a charm, and blow the secret of the wizarding world wide open. Our aurors are already overstrapped, casting confundus charms, unplottable charms. They're already at the breaking point where they can no longer keep up with the potential catastrophes day by day. We don't have a choice. If we allow things to go any further, someone, somewhere will get compromising video footage and the secret will be gone. There are big costs to this possibility rather than the controlled rollout that we propose. First of all, we can avoid conflicting information if we break the secret now. With our high-level government contacts, we can tell them what's what, because conflicting information, when essentially the greatest political scandal in all of history is erupting, those kinds of conflicting information and confusing media reports are what create things like splinter groups and conspiracy theorists who think there's something nefarious going on. Having one set of facts at one point in time allows us to prevent that kind of fear-mongering and allow the transition to go more smoothly. Second of all, there's the possibility that the secret could be broken because of a huge calamity. Here in the wizarding world, we just finished our conquest of the Dark Wizard Voldemort. We just managed to successfully tamp down their insurgency, essentially a fascist insurgency, and if they had allowed themselves to declare dominion over the Muggle world and to violate the statute of secrecy, we could have had a horrible situation in which thousands of Muggles were killed and thousands of Muggle-borns were also imprisoned or killed. We think that's a really unfortunate possibility. We think it's our moral obligation to tell the truth to Muggles as quickly as possible so that they know what they need to do to avoid Dark Wizard attacks. We need to act now. I'll take opening now.
It's interesting how you bring up like the Second Wizarding World war, because no Muggles knew about that. And I think it was all over London, and the fact that it's not blown already, I think we've handled it pretty well, and all this thing you're saying does not exist here.
No Muggles knew about it, but thousands of them died in gas leaks and mob violence that we had to explain away to Muggle authorities. We are facing a moral cost, not just an informational cost. And as surveillance technology grows more and more widespread, the possibility that this information gets out just gets higher. We got lucky, we won't get lucky again. The second point I want to make is about the opportunities available to us if we come out to the Muggles. The thing I want to point out is that Muggle science and the expansion of human understanding they've achieved through it is actually the most powerful force in the universe. Sure, magic is great, but magic is linear, it's flat. We're still casting the spells passed down to us by Merlin and Godric Gryffindor. Muggles science advances exponentially. It builds on itself. Without the advantage of any kind of magic, Muggles have traveled to the moon, sent information instantly across the globe. They have bombs that can destroy the planet. It's clear that Muggle science is something that we need to take advantage of in the wizarding world. Because the magic that we can do allows us to disprove very basic principles like the equivalence of mass and energy. If you can turn into a cat and displace a bunch of mass through magic, it's obvious there are physical principles Muggles don't yet understand. If we can work together, if we can investigate the real deepest laws of the universe, then we can learn to control the universe in a way more fundamental than either wizards or Muggles apart could. We can become as unto gods and go out and colonize the universe. We think this vision exceeds anything the opposition has to offer in terms of its glorious possibility. We are proud to propose.
Dean Minister of Magic has nothing but the best of the wizarding world in mind. We must think about the Mugwump. The Mugwump, that's right, my friends. The Mugwump is the head of the international wizarding community, not simply the Ministry of Magic which operates out of Britain. And when you ignore what the Mugwump and all the Mugwumps before him have set forth, we seriously have issues here, because there are reasons that these international secrecy acts exist. There are reasons that we have Muggle protection laws. And when you go against all of those things, we go back to 1792, my friends, where wizards are being staked and burnt at the stake. And we think, for those reasons alone, we cannot propose this motion. When we hear the Prime Minister stand up here and say, look at Muggle science, look how they can blow up buildings and cause explosions, we should let them know that there's a threat in the name of wizard. We think that's a big issue. Because he's proven, they no longer just have sticks and fire, they now have guns and bombs and other things from which to commit hate crimes upon our wizarding community. And we think especially when we have more and more Muggle-born wizards breaking out every day, we have an imperative to keep that knowledge secret so they're not discriminated against from an early age. A young wizard finds out, hey, I'm from Hogwarts, and everyone beats the crap out of him for being a wizard, because now they're allowed to know that you're magical, I am not, you don't have control of your powers yet, we're going to nip this in the bud, and we are jealous or scared of you. And we think that is a horrible, horrible, horrible threat coming outside government. Now, so I want to bring you back to when the first Wizgamut happened, and we had this international secrecy law. Why were they doing that? We're doing that because, there were people like Wizenwald the Weird who were being burned at the stake. There were people like Nicholas Sir Pigeonhead who got cut off and became later nearly headless Nick. People who, even though they were magical and there was primitive Muggle technologies, were being killed and were being tortured for being themselves. And we think that the only way we are allowed to be themselves and develop as wizards in a wizarding community is if we keep ourselves secret, is if we keep ourselves reserved from the Muggles. Because once we say, hey, you know how those thousands of people died, like when the Millennium Bridge blew up because of Voldemort? Well, that was us. They're going to be attributing every single mass murder, every single natural disaster on the wizarding community, and wizards will no longer be safe to be wizards and be themselves. I'll take bottom half.
Okay, one, why can't we just add wizards to the sorts of hate crime protection laws that already exist in these sorts of things so that people aren't attacking wizards? And two, Muggles burned everybody at the stake in the 1700s. Stop doing it now.
Well, we've seen time and time again throughout the literature that when we have wizards who are in the Muggle community, they are discriminated against. Think of Harry Potter. This poor, poor boy, simply from being from Muggle or from wizard parents, was shoved under a cupboard for 16 years of his life before he was able to actually escape the Dursleys, simply because they were Muggles, And we see that there are other things like Minerva McGonagall, when she was a young witch before she had gotten her powers. They had to have an awkward conversation like, hey, honey, you know how we got married 32 years ago and now have a child? Psych, I'm magic! And we think that really what we see is we see more hate crimes coming out from when Muggles know about wizards in the wizarding community, more so than when we are in our own communities. But you disagree.
Yeah, so the reason that the Dursleys were so mean to Harry Potter doesn't really seem to just be because he was a wizard. Isn't the more pernicious harm on your side of the house, where how a wizard gets treated when they don't come from a wizarding family is entirely dependent on whether or not their family just decides to accept them?
Yes, but what we feel is that when you allow Muggles to know that magic exists, and it's not something that you can learn or something you can earn, they're going to be discriminated discriminatory towards those who are naturally born with it. And we're going to see that they're going to actually categorically say, hey, you know what, we're not cool with this. And you know, in wizarding community, if you look at London, the population of London, there's about, what, 1,500 wizards in the community of Britain, right, as it is. And if you look how many Muggles there are, we think that there is a really, really scary difference in that number. And we think that when you're talking about the technologies brought forth to you by the Ministry of Magic, what we see is we actually see that we're in greater risk because they already have shown throughout history that they don't really like it when, hey, I'm magical and you are not, and that causes discrimination. And if you talk about all of these further advancements in the technology, we think that we actually cause more harm than good. We need to stick with the mugwumps. We need to present to you that we need to uphold the international vow of secrecy. Otherwise, we're going to be opening ourselves up to a very dangerous situation where we could be facing a wizard genocide. And we think that is unfair, and we think we must protect the young witches and wizards who are arising out of this. Because they are higher than a hippogriff if they think that discrimination is going to just go behind just because they are going to know that it's happening now. And we cannot sit there, and we want to wrap this up to where everybody is going to be able to be free to be who they are. And the only way we can do that is to uphold and stand with the mugwump. Thank you.
Alright, so first off, I've got some refutation, then I'll go into some support of the leader of opposition, and then I'll talk about my main point. So first off in refutation, I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that the word mudblood was used, okay? The correct terminology is Muggleborn, alright? Right off the bat. Okay. So a lot of the arguments on the ministry side, involve technology, okay? And we would just like to say right off the bat that technology is not work if wizards don't want it to. You know, I've read in Hogwarts history, okay? It's one of the most popular things, you know, you can't have technology on Hogwarts premises. They can stop that from happening. It doesn't have to immediately get out there. We can prevent that from happening, okay? Basically, more arguments that were brought up was the fact that, you know, Muggles can go, they can tell their families, and they can't tell their families, but Statute 72 of the International Statute of Security states that Muggles can tell their families. They can share that. And we really want to hammer home that the International Statute of Security does work. That was written back in 1692, and it has protected wizards, and it will continue to protect wizards and Muggles. Okay. So we find that a lot of their arguments are very optimistic. You know, we can really help them. We can just, there's no limits to what we can do if we just share. You know, it's going to be fine. But we believe that it's not going to be fine. We believe that there are a lot of issues. And I'll take you.
Okay, so we know you have a lot of fear-mongering for us, but we know that mythical minorities can come out and be recognized by society as a whole. Just look at the documentary True Blood. I respect True Blood right off the bat. Do not believe that having people that can kill other people, single Christ Avada Kedavra, is going to be overall beneficial to relations at the end of the day. So what we're seeing is increased integration will allow more abuses. Like now they're all closer together. What's to stop one wizard from performing the Imperious Curse? What's to stop him from controlling that other person? We think it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. And, you know, for some support, you know, right off the bat, it was stated, you know, that the Mugwump and the International State of Security has protected us from the stake right at the beginning. So we have a lot of situations in which wizards were protected like hundreds of years ago because Muggles resented their power, Muggles didn't respect them, and you know, and they were afraid of them. We think the same is going to happen today, if not more so, considering how powerful wizards are. And technology, while it has advanced, doesn't change the fact that they can teleport and kill people without even saying a word. We think this is huge. Okay, so to get into my extension, I just want to get into the fact that, you know, Muggle awareness to some degree is unnecessary because, as was stated by the Minister of Magic, it was stated that, you know, the Muggle PM has connections, right? They do have connections. I mean, the Minister of Magic has connections, right? He can actually talk to the Muggle Prime Minister, right? He can talk to them. Our world is not completely closed off. So if the Minister of Magic wanted to warn a Muggle of a crisis happening, he could do that. He could get up right there, you know. And also there are other issues, you know, when it comes to relations, Muggles being aware. There's also mythical creatures that would scare them. We have Dementors. We have actual creatures that can suck happiness from you, and then, that's the best part, and then they can suck your soul out from your mouth. No. This is terrifying. They're going to be terrified. They don't have wands so they can cast Patronus charms. They don't have that ability. They
they have to make do, okay? And we think that, no, okay? So, and we think that, I'll take you.
Now, we also have unicorns. Please tell me one thing in society that we've been better able to defend ourselves against by not knowing what it is, what it does, or how it works.
Okay, right off the bat with unicorns, maybe we should also tell Muggles that if we drink their blood, we'll become immortal for all of time. Maybe we should express some of those thoughts, okay? And that's not necessarily a good thing, as they say in the Philosopher's Stone. That kind of sucks. Dumbledore said, a wise man knows when his time's up. I'm paraphrasing there. What I'm trying to express here is that mythical creatures are only going to deter them, it's only going to scare them more, okay? So, we have other issues, like Muggles are going to run to wizards for every one of their little problems, okay? As we've seen with the Hagrid, that's one of the reasons they're secret. They're afraid, they don't want to be bothered. They're wizards. They're in a separate community. They've lived in separate communities for hundreds of years. What they're gonna be running to them. Hey, cure my sister, cure my dog, cure my toy if it's not working, or like fix my iPhone. And we're just gonna be like, hey, dude, that's cool. Leave us alone. Okay? We don't want that to happen. This is a terrible situation, and we already know that there are Muggles out there that won't appreciate wizards. Okay? The Dursleys. All right? Look what they did to Harry, as was stated. It's not a good situation. So all in all, we strongly support opposition.
I now invite the member of government to open the back half of this debate with the government bench.
Ladies and gentlemen, a pessimistic worldview where they say that if wizards reveal themselves, then there will be like complete catastrophe, as Muggles don't know that unicorns will give them immortality, and we have these other creatures, and that Muggles are going to ask wizards to help them make their lives better. And that, they say, is absolutely unforgivable. We should make it so that wizards, under their line of thinking, never help Muggles whatsoever, and we don't think that's a good idea, because we think that Muggles are actually sentient beings, and that Muggles actually have, a little bit of worth. And we think that maybe wizards and Muggles should work together to make each other's lives better. I mean, I think that's like a pretty reasonable train of thought, and they keep on giving you like this horrible doom and gloom picture that's going to happen if this happens. So, first of all, onto their big line that like there's just going to be so many abuses in the system and how there's going to be no regulation. Well, if anything, this is going to lead to more regulation. Like right now, it's completely secret from the Muggles, and the wizards have infiltrated every single level of the Muggle government. Like they use the Obliviate curse or charm or jinx, I think it's a curse. They use the Obliviate curse on the Prime Minister. Like wizards have complete control over the Muggle governments right now. And we don't think that's good. That leads to less accountability for wizards and what they do. So when we have these wizards and their dark arts, integrating them into society and making it so that wizards and Muggles now have like some sort of an equal footing in which Muggles have recourse for all of the abuses that wizards can now do to them, we think that all of the harms that they're trying to present to you, all of the harms that they're trying to present to you don't necessarily come true. If anything, we think that those harms are solved for on our side of the house. I just got very impassioned there. Needed to shut that down. So, they also bring like these points about the creatures and or how wizards are just going to be like completely abused by Muggles. Well, wizards can charge for their services if they want to talk about like fixing an iPhone, okay. Also, they talk about like how it's never going to come out to like refute this point. Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that this statute was written in 1692. That was their example, a 1692 statute. Things have changed. The Harry Potter book, which is what they're referencing in terms of like not coming out during London, was written in like the 90s, or actually took place in the 90s. Camera phones weren't near as prevalent as they are in current society. So we think that as society has changed, we have then also increased the likelihood of wizarding being discovered. Sure.
Sure. So even if a Muggle ever does find out and whatnot, what is the point of it if we can just simply erase their memories?
Yeah, so we can erase one Muggle's memories, but if that spreads on YouTube, or if they get to that before wizards can get there, and you have like the entire Muggle population finding out, you can't just obliviate the world. It doesn't work. So now, getting on to our case, and we want to focus more on the morality and ethics behind wizards being Muggles' overlords. Like, basically, we don't think that's okay. We think that wizards and Muggles should be, like, more on an equal footing instead of wizards, like, being, at best, a completely fascist and controlling dystopian state, and at worst, a completely evil and controlling fascist dystopian state. So, like, we don't think that's okay. And the reason why we want to do this is, like,
we think that wizards and muggles, when they know that each other exists and when they actually have like meaningful discourse about or about the differences between the two, we think that that will absolutely open up more recourse for muggles to not be controlled by these wizards. So they also bring up this line that was tried to refute about like hate crimes, but that's like already solved under hate crime legislation. That's not unique to this problem. So. Yeah, so we don't believe that wizards are necessarily inherently superior in terms of like their value of life to a muggle. We think that all sentient beings like have a right to live, all sentient beings have a right to like self-actualize and make decisions for themselves. So we don't think that wizards pulling the strings behind everything muggles do is like moral or good or nice or even like anywhere sort of good. So why wizards why wizards like being in control is so problematic? Like they're not even doing a good job. So like when we talk about like horrible events that happened, like Grindelwald and his scientific experimentation in canon was like done behind the concentration camps. Like he was using that in order to fuel his dark arts. So when we have like muggles trying to improve themselves and like looking at sociological issues that are like causing like massive terrible events like the Holocaust or like apartheid, it's actually just wizards doing things and muggles have no idea. So like how is it possible then for muggles to better themselves as a society when wizards are just pulling all the strings? That's immoral, that's not right, that's not letting muggles have free will, and we think muggles should have free will because muggles are pretty smart. I mean, they went to the moon without magic. That's pretty neat. We don't think that's, we really don't think that wizards should be puppeting the world. We think that muggles have that. So now when we talk about like cooperation between the human and wizarding governments, right now like it's not a positive relationship. Wizards are just controlling everything. We think that's immoral, we think that's wrong, and we think that muggles should be able to make the decisions for themselves as well as having more open recourse with the wizarding world in order to get better things done for the betterment of both cultures. So for these reasons, we are proud to propose.
Now invite the member of opposition to extend the case for the opposition bench. Here.
So we in closing opposition definitely have a weighing mechanism for this round, and it's absolutely net harm or net benefit for society as a whole. And actually, wizards are part of society even if muggles don't know about us. So it's for our benefit too, if we don't tell the muggles. So before I go into any further, I'd like to talk about a little bit of reputation and go into my own points. First with the reputation, they said it'll lead to regulation. We don't know who's going to lead to regulation. Like maybe the muggles will start regulating it, or maybe the really bad wizards will start regulating it. So we think if you don't tell them, we'll have the good wizards telling the bad wizards that they can't do that, and then suddenly you've got good people regulating it, and you don't have to involve these other people, which ultimately leads to other harms. So then they said that there's no accountability when you can just erase someone's memory. Well, if they don't know about it, you don't need to have accountability. So we think that solves that part. There's also this huge assumption that we can't do technology. Like, we can't do all of those things. They wrote books. Can we not read? Are we seriously limiting ourselves to basic human function? Or are we somehow now an animal or some kind of other species that can't function on the same level as these other beings? And finally, they say that this muggles should have free will. Well, they do. Wizards are the ones who've been having all the problems, and like telling the muggles that we have bad wizards, also all these bad things are because of us, fix it. Really, we're just passing the buck, and it's our own fault. So I don't think we're really limiting their free will. We're just messing up our own problems. So, can I go ahead and take you?
Okay, so you said that like we can read the Muggles book. Well, the head of Muggle studies for the international or the Ministry of Magic doesn't know how to work a lawnmower. So like this person who has been studying Muggles extensively clearly shows that he doesn't understand Muggle technology, and so clearly wizards have a problem with understanding Muggle technology when they don't work with it.
It's nothing about the wizards, it's where we're directing our resources, and we're obviously sending individuals who we don't really care about to these Muggle studies because we aren't valuing the Muggles, but we're sending individuals to like the equivalent of wizarding army, where they should be going to understanding other cultures. So it's a misdirection of resources to assume we can't work with technology. So I'd like to talk about the idea of having a peaceful transition if we talk to the Muggles. There has never been a peaceful transition when there is a change in power. when you talk about Aragon and the dragons, you've got Galbatorix who's suddenly coming in and pulling the rug out from underneath all of these people. Like, it just ended up in a lot of oppression and bad people controlling bad people. Yeah. You've got Sauron who developed a new ring to control all the other rings. It's a bad idea. So, we're just going to talk about how it's not a good way to have a peaceful transition. So, first, we'd like to talk about how humans fear that which pulls the rug out from under their feet. We don't have a peaceful transition because when someone pulls the power out from our system of hierarchy, we freak out. In a more realistic example, we talk about the Salem witch trials. Suddenly, individuals contradicted their entire system of religion, which also controlled their politics. Not only did they affect the people who were legitimately engaging in these practices, but suddenly everybody who seemed like a threat to them and to their power structure was a problem. And so we think that that would become not only a fight against the bad wizards, but any wizard that they associated with that individual. So we also talk about X-Men and the mutants. Even though the mutants were technically more advanced, they were used as science subjects and they needed to be cured. That's inherently a wrong thing, and submitting an entire equal group of beings to a lower class, which we want to talk about this idea of social stratification. Inevitably, one group will become a superior class, whether or not you have the magic subduing the Muggles or you have the Muggles subduing the magic. So, we'd like to give this example of the conquistadors in the New World. They came in, and the Mayan civilization, they were awesome. They had all this science, they had so many things, and we came in and we were like, we need to share cross-cultural experiences and give you our God and our things. We need to give you, we want your gold. And that's what it is. We want the science that's their gold, and we're going to give them our God, which is magic. And we're going to end up with someone being subjugated. So, going back to this idea of the X-Men, even though these were technically advanced human beings, same species, same races, they were subjugated by human beings and used as things. So we see that if we tell Muggles that we exist, we'll see net harm, social stratification, we'll backtrack on progress, there'll be oppression of humans, or on either side, Muggles or wizards, there will be violence, insecurity, and fear. But the net benefits are we vaguely fulfill a sense that people need to know about other people? That doesn't really hold up anywhere. So we say if we don't tell, we keep peace, benevolent magic goes on, and no one gets subjugated. Thank you.
I thank the member of opposition for her speech and call upon the government whip to close out the case of the government. 5 minutes.
Say, buddy. Well, insane when I get caught.
Me?
Everyone. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed speakers of the whatever, magic, ministry, etc., I want everyone to know that we should judge this in the only way we judge anything in Portland. Which plan ultimately leads in magic space communism? I believe that the answer is clearly side government, as illustrated by our Prime Minister of Magic and all through the line. I believe I can show you why our world is better, and why we have better outcomes for everyone, and why I think that revealing ourselves is going to be totally awesome and wizard. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this wizard master race problem that she's talking about sort of throughout my speeches. But I want to talk about 3 major issues today that I think this basically boils down to. First of all, what sorts of games can we actually make when the Muggle and Wizard worlds unite and by our powers combined do Super Voltron magic? Secondly, will Wizard be burned at stakes, and is that a bad thing? I want to discuss that because that's probably important. And last but not least, I want to talk frankly about what we think is the only moral choice, beyond any matter of practicality, on what we must reveal ourselves to the Muggles and admit that we've been secretly controlling their lives for like thousands of years. Because that's kind of important and they should probably know. So, first, what sorts of games can we make? Baker talked about this really, really excitedly because it's awesome, right? There's a huge revolution of like scientific and technological understanding that's literally about to take place, right? Like consider everything the Muggles know about general relativity and thermodynamics and about how it's all crap and they don't know anything apparently. And we can fill them in on a huge chunk of knowledge about the way the universe actually literally works that they don't yet have access to. This could actually complete a lot of these sorts of issues. We could have massive levels of technological advancement in a very short amount of time, and solve a lot of problems that both wizards have that we're working on with our magic and stuff, and muggles have that they solve with their lawnmowers or whatever it is that they're using. Like, we think that's incredibly important in order to sort of solve a lot of these social and economic harms that, like, just both societies have all the time. I mean, the issue right now is wizards, like, we literally don't have a scientific method. You stop learning at the age of 11. You go to a school where they just teach you how to recite things, and that's the entirety of your schooling for the rest of your life. You're basically an idiot, unless you're Hermione Granger. Everyone else is basically just an 11-year-old. We think that we can be vastly improved by working with the muggles. Now, they understand that, like, okay, well, it's a misdirection of resources, and maybe we could learn technology, and that's probably I guess. That still doesn't help out the muggles, and we think it's important to focus on them too. Please, before I go on.
So you're just going to assume that everyone's going to accept these wizards, they're just going to be like, I solemnly swear I'm up to no good, they're just going to accept that, and no one's going to, like, try to burn them at the stake. We're like, no, we're trying to help you! Ah!
Okay, so I'm pretty sure there's still races, but I'm pretty sure we can make burning people at the stake illegal, because I think it's also currently illegal. That is a good segue, though, because I'm going to talk about, like, this idea of will wizards face prosecution, because as you know, the whole reason we're secret is because we were burnt at the stake in the past, and that's a good reason to stop, like, being in front of people. We don't think that's as much of a problem now. I think Muggle society has advanced somewhat, and I think that we can probably safely say that at the very least you could ease into this sort of peaceful transition, right? Like, I think that at least at the very least, like, Western liberal democracies could adopt, like, wizards into their society and be alright, right? Now, they keep bringing up this point of, like, well, look at what happened to Harry Potter. They made him live under, like, stairs. It's like, one, if Harry Potter could admit to people that the reason they were doing this was because he was magic, maybe Harry Potter could have just called Child Protective Services. They'd be on the media, and everybody would laugh at them, and nobody would buy their cakes from their cake store. Like, we can create these sorts of regulatory bodies if everybody can come together and have an understanding of, okay, some people are wizards, and that's okay, everyone. It's okay to be different. I think we can create these sorts of societal problems peacefully. She talks about, like, there's no peaceful transition, look at Aragon and so on. First of all, those are fiction books. What is the only moral right here today? I think it's important that we come clean and atone for years of magical oppression that we've been inflicting on the Muggles. Because I'll suggest that this problem is, well, this will just lead to people like the Malfoys oppressing people because they're blonde and evil. Like, they literally do that right now. Like, even the actual, like, not evil magic government, like the not fascist Voldemort one, is like, let's just charm the hell out of the Prime Minister of the Muggles, because it's not like they're humans who deserve treatment. That's a problem. All throughout history, apparently every major historical event in Muggle lives, including the Second World War and South African apartheid and everything else, has been secretly done because wizards were behind it all, doing it for their evil occult things. Like, literally, it's the governments you think you elect, corporations, the Illuminati, and then wizards. Understand that. There's no way you can have democratic representative government when magic people who don't understand lawnmowers are secretly running it. Problems in the past, and we should probably make up for this so we can have these sorts of discussions, come together as a people, and finally unite, not as Muggles, not as magic porn, but as humans.
I call upon the opposition whip to close out the bench for opposition and close out the debate. Here, here.
Two questions. And the first question, although they gave three, I'm going to go through and rebut those. But my first question is, are Muggles good people?
Magic, and together they save the day.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Wizarding community, I'm sure you're all aware that there are three particular curses that can earn you a lifetime sentence in Azkaban. These are, of course, the Killing Curse, the Imperious Curse, and the Crucio Curse. And I'm here to talk to you today about one that is far worse than any of these three. is called the Obliviate charm. You see, in I don't know the dates, you'll have to bear with me. A young boy named Neville Longbottom's parents died in a tragic car crash. He was adopted by a loving and generous couple and lived a happy, fulfilled life. In 19 somewhat further back, another young lad named Tom Riddle actually had a lovely, lovely childhood with a kind and loving set of parents. There was this little hitch where somehow his mother and his father had this really weird love-hate relationship and his granddad wanted to kill him or some such like that. But none of that actually ever happened. It never did. A young boy named Harry Potter, his parents never actually were killed. Well, that's about all I get. I hope I've made my point in that this world didn't happen, but it could have happened. And if it should have happened, then we should have remained in secret. Essentially, if you can modify someone's memory, you can modify the entirety of their personal being, self, and soul. If we should do this, then yes, let us keep ourselves secret. But if this is somehow wrong, if this sits unwell with any of you, this is the camp to support.
I want to try to substantiate some of the yacht case. I think, first off the bat, I think when we come out and we say we've been obliviating your heads of states for a long period of time, I think the response immediately from the Muggles is going to be very, very bad. Right? I think this idea that more powerful people, people that have powers that we do not, and that's born ingrained within them, is something that is genuinely terrifying to the general public and something that people are going to fear. I think people are going to have a response to that and want to denounce the people that have those power and want to restrict them in their society, right? So right off the bat, that's bad. Especially when we go out and say things like, we are responsible for the Holocaust, we are responsible for apartheid, oh, all those gas leaks in London, whoops, that was us. I think people are likely to have very, very negative response to that, and Muggles are going to take a strong stance against wizards. And beyond that, I think within the wizarding community, there's also a lot of outcry against the Muggles themselves. I think like the people like the Malfoys actually do have a lot of sway within the wizarding community, and when Muggles start coming out and denouncing wizards, I think they're likely to gain more influence, gain more sway, and we're very likely to see an actual genuine conflict between the two people. And when there's so much misunderstanding in terms of how the technology works, I think that conflict is going to lead to a lot of death. I think that's a really bad thing. I think we should try to prevent that from happening.
I would just like to address some of the marginalized groups that in this debate, such as all of the magical creatures. I don't think that the wizarding world can really make this decision in good faith on behalf of all of the magical creatures, which depend on secrecy for their safety. I think that a lot of creatures, or like sentient magical beings, such as vampires or werewolves, might like literally be the stuff of nightmare of Muggles. They would kill them. Other sorts of animals, such as unicorns or centaurs or mermaids, I think they would still exploit. I think that on their behalf, it's important for us to maintain secrecy. Also, I would just like to point out that without wands, wizards can't really do very much. Why don't you just regulate or cut down the wand trees? I feel like it significantly infringe on all of the powers that wizards have, and therefore we should definitely be secret.
So, I want to talk about a couple of things to encourage coming out to the Muggles. One of the things is, yes, I do agree that other beasts and fantastical creatures should be part of this discussion, but at the same time, if we came out to Muggles and they were aware of such creatures, we wouldn't have to spend all of the resources to keep a lot of these creatures from killing them. And we wouldn't have to fabricate all these stories to convince them, hey, you weren't nearly impaled by that creature. You weren't nearly killed by that one either. So we would not only save a lot of money in the ministry and just plain out sources and wizard lives as well, but these creatures would also,
But Muggles would also have the benefit of learning about dragons, and to be honest, that's kind of a big deal to them.
All right. So thank you all for this wonderful discussion of very relevant and important, meaningful stuff that's happening in the world today. So a few brief announcements about tomorrow. If you are participating, Aaron, my old debate partner, so it's okay. We will be starting round 1 at 9:15 promptly. That's when the motion will be read. Breakfast, which includes bagels and muffins and coffee, a lot of that, and water, tea, just coffee. We'll start at 8. We'll have that ready at 8 on the 3rd floor of this building that you're in right now, in the ballroom, which basically takes up the whole 3rd floor, so it's really hard to miss it. That'll start, check-in starts at 8, and then we will close that check-in probably 8:45. And we're going to give a briefing over the rules that we are applying here, which are basically the same, except for you have to take a POI. I'll explain that. It's really simple. You all self-police after round 1. It'll be fine. Yeah. I think that's all. And we're going to Twitter things with a hashtag of PSUIV if you do the Twittering, or the Instagramming, which apparently is also a thing. That's Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Clark. I'm the
Commandant.
social admiral for the PSU tournament this weekend. I'm in charge of the Twitter account for our team, and so I will be keeping updates. And if you guys could please be as interactive as possible by using the hashtag thing. PSUIV, right? Are you consensus on that? Yeah.
Will there be a PSU Snapchat account?
We are not yet on Instagram. I'll probably end up doing that tonight, and sure, I will jump in on the whole social media bandwagon, and I'll try to do that.
Thanks, Amanda.
Any questions?
Will there be a Twitter wall?
A what?
A Twitter wall? Maybe, yeah.
Is that a thing?
That's a thing.
We did it at Berlin Worlds, and it was fantastic. It was the best thing ever.
Wait, is that just where...
Nothing at all went wrong.
Is that just where the broadcast all the things people are tweeting? Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, sure.
Yes.
We have technology.
We'll have all the things.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. And then...
Also, see me tomorrow at registration. If you are participating in the debate, I will have registration packets for your schools, not for every team, but for per school. So just see me, and I have neat information in there for you.
Yeah, and then we got to make sure everything runs on time tomorrow so that we can get to the social on time, which is a few blocks that way. You'll take the streetcar. It costs $1. It's preferable if you buy your streetcar ticket sometime tomorrow. Is it time-stamped?
You can do it. You can do it before.
Yeah, it's just when like 100 people line up at the same ticket machine, it like might go a little slowly. Just look up this Portland Street card. It only costs $1. Also, they never enforce it, so
I hope
you so if you're Canadian, they're never going to find you.
No, they totally do.
I included all the information.
We are not liable for that.
I didn't say that, so it's your choice.
Can you buy it on your phone?
Yes.
You can buy it on your phone too.
You can also buy tickets on your phone.
I have all the website
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
But that's it. We will see you tomorrow morning. If you want to join us at Grove Brewery, I think minors are allowed half of it, so that way.
Thank you for coming.